Welcome back to Balancing Chaos with
Kelley
and Gretchen. And today we are coming to you not live from Kelley's basement. And we have some interesting things to chat about today. But Kelley has to catch us up first on her accident.
Yeah, so I've been in contact with the gentleman whose car I hit a few weeks back. I can't remember what episode that was when I confessed my crime.
I'll have to look and see. I'll put it in the show notes.
But we have been in contact. We have been texting, and the grand total of my damage is $75. So I'm going to pay the shop and brewer a check, and we're going to have a peaceful end to this story.
Well, that's good. I'm really glad this didn't end up with you in jail, because that would have been tough. Although we could have done like those payphone jail recording calls and just do it every 20 minutes and have to put in more money. Would have been fun. Would have been good.
Do they still have those?
Maybe. I like to imagine you in jail.
Now, tell them about my basement, because I'm going to tell you about that picture right there.
Kelley's basement is the basement of a colonial home in New England. So I believe there was paneling on the wall at one time and it's gone. And it has old outlets. So we need an adapter. And she has a picture of a horse. And she's going to share this picture of her horse.
So my husband comes from about 5 generations of only children, and his father had passed away we're coming on 3 years. And we have this picture of John R. Braden, and his grandmother and his great-grandmother used to write notes on everything. And on the back of the picture, it says, John R. Braden, a very famous racehorse at Presque Isle Fair during the 1920s. James Allen Smith, your maternal grandfather, bought this home one time from a fundraising affair. A great story to tell. And then there's an article taped to the back of it from Down East Magazine, November 2014 issue. And it talks about how famous this horse is, the picture of the horse. And so this has been an ongoing joke in the family. We bring the horse to when we want some good luck. And so he's now in the basement for cribbage nights.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I was going to say, this is obviously a family heirloom if it's in the corner of your basement.
And then we also have Francis. I don't know if you saw Francis.
Yes. He looks like a Haunted Mansion picture.
Francis.
His eyes are kind of following me.
Isn't it creepy? So we're looking at Francis Strout, who was the superintendent in Fort Fairfield for many years. And this was his superintendent portrait. We had always planned to donate it to Fort Fairfield when we received it, but then it felt wrong. So that is also in the basement for good luck. So these are James's good luck charms for.
Does it work?
He thinks it does. I mean, and he has to be in the basement because, like you said, the eyes are very creepy.
Yes, it looks like a Haunted Mansion portrait of a superintendent, which is interesting. So we're talking about luck and skill, and so that leads into our topic for today, which is how do you talk about your kids, and how do you walk the line of celebrating them without being cocky or bragging, and what kinds of things do you not talk about and what kinds of things do you talk about? I'm thinking there's sort of 3 main ones, and your kiddos are still little, so you haven't run into this yet. I'm thinking there's the academic side, the athletic side, and the artistic side of kids. What are your thoughts with under 6s? What have you run into so far? What have you noticed as a parent of preschoolers?
I think it's been tough because I haven't had a lot of kids to necessarily compare my kids to, so I don't know if I don't know what their challenges are or what their strengths are. I mean, I know Cameron is pretty good at art, but I think with academics, once I get into school age, when everyone's kind of measured on the same standard, that's when I'm assuming some of these interesting.
I think that what happens once you get into the school years is that you are no longer in our situation, a self-selected group of people. And also the other thing too is that, for instance, one of my daughters, people are like, oh, she's so tall, and she's actually one of the shortest girls in her class. But to everyone else, she looks like she's so tall because they knew her when she was 21 inches long when she was born. So obviously being a little bit over 4 feet is tall compared to that. When your only exposure is your own kid, it's sort of the way Dave described it when our kids started to talk. He was like, imagine if your dog just turned around and all of a sudden started talking to you and said, "Hi, Dad. I love you. How are things?" And like, it doesn't happen, but it's such a weird thing when your kid starts to talk. It's like, it blows your mind. And especially with a first kid, I think it's easy to be like, this is absolutely the most amazing kid that ever did anything, because they're on 2 feet, they're talking to me, and it's not a fever dream. Like, this has to be the coolest kid in the world. Then once they get into the school years, I think you start to sort of be like, oh, they all talk. Okay. All right. So that's sort of like an average expected behavior from a baby that turns into an eventual kid.
Yeah.
So I think that that's one of the reasons why when you get into the school years, that starts to show up and you start to be humbled a little bit about your amazing child. All children are amazing.
Well, I do think one of the challenges is just the way school is structured in general. All types of school, all the way up through college. Mm-hmm. There's typically an emphasis on a couple areas. And let's just go back to the art, for example. Cameron really enjoys art, and he goes to some art camps, and he likes to do art projects at home. But in school, art is only, I think, every other week in our schools. So even if you were phenomenal at art, in the day-to-day culture of the school, it's not going to be part of your label or your celebration.
Right. Because
there's so many other things that are the primary focus.
Well, until he gets to high school and starts giving the other kids tattoos, and then he'll be known for it.
Oh, they do that.
Well, I'm sure he will. He'll just make his own gun. Going back to your prison time. No, he'll be the one that has the cool like notebook covers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Drawing cool stuff like that. I think that that's totally true. That when they are artistic, it's not exactly something that gets celebrated in public schools. Just like empathy doesn't really get celebrated. Right. I'm all about multiple intelligence. I think there are multiple intelligences, and I can think of students that I taught when I was in the public schools who struggled with the traditional things, but one kid was basically a backyard mechanic, and he would take apart engines and put them back together. I couldn't do that. I could diagram a sentence, but I couldn't disassemble a car and get it back running again. But he was very skilled in that, and it was a strength of his, and there was no place for that in a K-8 school except for to be a teacher who knew it existed and to try to encourage it and to have it be something, because it's also hard when you're the kid who doesn't do well in the traditional areas to always be the one who doesn't do well in the traditional areas.
Right. And I do think that's something that we really need to evaluate. I don't know the answer per se, but I do see that we've kind of created an infrastructure where the expectation is everyone's prepping for college. And I have seen some things recently where there seemed to be some kind of push or encouragement to pursue other talents. But do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Every kid maybe that wouldn't be their greatest strength or where their true passion would come out, to go to a 4-year college. Right. And learn about something that doesn't really light them up. The other major issue that I see, and I don't know what you think about this, is that making people choose their degree or their lifelong career at 17 years old, because that's what we do right now.
They're doing it earlier than that.
It's absurd. The brain doesn't fully mature until age 25, and we make children.
Was your major nursing from the start?
Oh, yeah. Have you ever heard about the story?
Yes. Well, because you were a waitress. Yeah, we talked about that, and I was just verifying.
Oh, yeah. I never changed, but it's very uncommon.
Super uncommon to not change. Mine changed multiple times.
Most people's changed.
My first major was creative writing. Then I went to school for... it was going to be like a 2-year degree in human services, which would have been like social work. And then I decided to just do liberal studies and go travel. And then, so I got that. I got an associate's degree in liberal studies, and then I traveled for a while. Then I went back and decided I'd go back and do education. And then I kind of stuck on that path. But by the time I went back for education, I was 25 years old by the time I actually fell into that pattern. And now there's such they start kindergarten in some schools. Say, okay, we're getting you college or career ready. And no, just get them ready for recess and lunch, and get them ready to be good people that can talk to other people and can be kind and nice and open to new ideas, but also not crazy. And let's get them through that. Whereas college and career ready shouldn't be something that we're really focusing on at that age.
Well, James, I don't know if I've ever told you about his story, but he loved his psychology teacher in high school. Well, our psychology teacher in high school, and he decided that he wanted to earn his PhD in psychology when he was in high school. So he went to school for psychology, and then we were supposed to graduate. The year we were supposed to graduate in January, so we should have graduated in May, and he called me in January, a week before classes were supposed to start, and said, I changed my major to engineering.
Oh my God.
And
how much of it transferred? How much of it counted?
Well, turns out that he had fulfilled all the requirements for the psychology degree except for the capstone course. But psychology is a Bachelor of Arts and engineering is a Bachelor of Science. So he had to start all over. So he actually has 2 degrees.
Did he finish the psychology one? I feel like when you get to that point, you just have to...
He had to.
Round it off, go back to the beginning, finish the lap, and start again. Don't walk away at the finish line.
He did, but the course that he needed, the way his schedule worked out, he actually took his senior seminar for engineering and the senior capstone for psychology in the same semester. So he graduated the same time with 2 degrees.
How many years did that take him?
6.5 years. And I think he ended with 256 credit hours. So you remember that debt I was talking about?
Yes.
That was for
there's dollars, and it's all paid off, but there's dollars for every credit. That's for sure. There is a focus on choosing your career and choosing your degree so much earlier. And I am one who, if the girls come home and say, I want to try this, if it's relatively reasonable, I'll say, yeah, absolutely. And it's been interesting in this middle school year, especially for my older daughter, to see all these options she has. So she's done orchestra for a while. I think she's going to stop doing it after the end of this year because it's at 7:30 in the morning, and it is tough to get a kid out and at the school at 7:30 in the morning. It's not tough for me because that's when I go to work, but it's been rough. And she doesn't really seem to practice as much at home, so she wants to try piano lessons. So we might try piano after this.
What did she play in the orchestra?
A violin.
Oh, I played the violin.
Yeah.
I quit too.
When did you quit?
I believe maybe 6th grade.
Yeah. The other thing is that I loved band. I was in band from 5th grade, which was the first year you could do it, until 12th grade. And I had the same teacher every year, because it was a small district. So my band teacher was there from 5th grade to 12th grade.
What did you play?
I played the clarinet and then the bass clarinet, which is big, and you have to stand on the floor, which makes it cooler.
Yeah.
So I did that. But my band teacher was amazing. And once you got to 7th grade, I went to a 7-12 junior high school. In 7th grade, you had band 5 days a week, all year long. I spent more time with my band teacher some weeks than I did with my own parents. We just did, because every morning you had band. He took us on these trips to New York City, to Boston. We went to competitions. We did parades. We did so much with band, and I loved it. But one of the things that I realized when I was having yet another, oh my God, you have to get out of the house. I have to get you there because it's 7:30. We have to go, is that I got a lot of what I got from band was that teamwork kind of thing. And I was not an athlete. I was a manager, which still doesn't get the teamwork thing. It just gets you a ride on the bus. I was not an athlete, and Ingrid is. And so she started field hockey and loves it. And now she's doing the swimming team, and she loves it. And she loves diving. So she's going to try diving at the Y starting this weekend, doing diving lessons because she loves that. And she's a pretty good, I actually texted my best friend who is an athlete and said, you're going to love this. But there was a thing today, I guess, that some of the girls in her class were annoyed that the boys kept throwing the ball to her, but Ingrid's very literal and very practical. She's like, well, I'm saying I'm open and I'm the left guard or left forward. I don't even know what she is, but whatever part she was playing in this handball game. And she got 3 goals. And so she would say, I'm open, and she can get a goal. So they would throw her the ball. That is literally the exact opposite experience. I had to go to special gym. Did I ever tell you about this?
I think I would be in special gym if they made special gym.
And literally 5th and 6th grade, they had me do special gym.
You guys had a special gym in your tiny school?
No, I didn't have a special gym, Kelly. I went to special gym.
They had a class for special gym?
For special kids who were like...
What did you guys do?
I wore a hockey mask while the teacher threw... I can't even say it with a straight face, but I swear to God it's true. While the teacher threw balls at me to try to get me to stop flinching during regular gym. So that's how we compare athletically.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Ingrid literally drew blood. Someone drew blood on her because she dove for the ball and the other kid dove for it and he scratched her on the way up. Diving for a ball is something that I have never done in my life, ever.
Now, did she do any sports before? Did she play sports before?
She did soccer, but we've always been really sort of, when they were preschool, I tried to do something every weekend, and it was really more for me than for her to get us out of the house, because if we had a destination, otherwise we would just, melt into the couch and never leave the house. So we did swimming lessons. We did gymnastics. I didn't want to go too far with gymnastics because that's a very injurious sport, especially for girls. And she was never going to be a gymnast. That's just not who she is. And then she decided to try soccer in 2nd grade. So she played soccer for a few years. And then this year they said a lot of kids play soccer at the school. And so she decided to try field hockey and loves it. She actually was asking me today or this week if she could come to my school's college hockey games, because we actually have won regional championships and stuff. So she wants to come see what a college field hockey game looks like. And she loves it. And it's so funny to see her out there because she is little, but she gets into it and she's good at it and she's very competitive with sports. So I said, all that teamwork and all that stuff I got from band, maybe you're getting it from field hockey. Maybe you're getting it from these other activities that I just never had access to and was never interested in. So sure, if you want to quit orchestra and you want to she'd love to take piano lessons. She has a keyboard in her room that Dave bought off Facebook Marketplace behind a Hannaford. A little creepy, but he got it. And he $30 and she plays that all the time. And so she would kind of like to take just piano lessons to learn how to play the piano. But I have said, if you do that, you have to practice it at home. It can't be just a once a week kind of a thing. I think that's one of the things, so trying to give my kids the opportunity and being fortunate enough to give my kids those opportunities is a huge thing, that they can try it out. It's harder for me to let them quit it.
Yeah.
So our rule is you finish the season. So she's going to finish out the year for orchestra. I'm like, they're counting on you for the spring concert.
Yeah.
And finish out the year, and then we'll be done with it. Giving them the opportunity to try new things, and then finding out I would never have ever pegged one of me and Dave's kids as being someone who was really into sports. She might start going to church. I don't know. She might tag along with you and really rebel.
Actually, I'm missing the church. The church does this big Easter carnival every year, and we always go. But I'm going to miss it because it's the same day as the gun march in Washington.
Easter's a week later.
Yeah, it's they take out all the pews and chairs in the church and they turn it into a big carnival, and it's open to the public. There's an Easter egg hunt and games, and you can get tickets and prizes, and it's fun.
We didn't even do Easter until the first time we did Easter, she was 4, and I was very heavily pregnant. I think it was in April. It was April 4th because I had Willa on the 5th, and she was like, how come we don't have an Easter bunny? How come it's come to us? We're like, crap, we got to do the Easter bunny. So we got eggs and hid them and made a little Easter basket. And so then we started doing it after that, only because she asked, kind of like when we had Amy on talking about Santa.
She wanted the Santa.
Yeah. So we do fake Easter. And I remember and it was a really hot weekend, and we were doing Easter egg hunts right before I had.
On April 5th?
Willa, April 4th.
I'm hoping we could have that same scenario.
It was so hot, and because both of my babies were spring babies, my ankles swelled up, and I called the doctor. I'm like, I don't know what's wrong. She's like, yeah, it's hot. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't have babies in the summer. So yes. So when I look at the athletic piece, it's also hard to try to separate yourself from what your kids want, and so that was really, so I can own that and say, but why would you give up band? I love that, but be like, she doesn't. And so she's not me. She's finding this joy in other places, so we can let it go. But it still feels a little, oh.
I think Cameron, I don't know what he'll land on, and that doesn't bother me at all. Maybe James might have a more difficult time with it because James is very athletic and super into sports. But I was just like, he wants to try everything, and I was just like that. Like I used to, in middle school, I'd get dropped off at 6 a.m. I was in science club. I was on student council. I did cheering. I did band. I can't think of all the other things. I was in the newspaper. Everything. All day, every day. And I loved it. I wanted to do everything. And I think Cameron's going to be a lot like that. He's going to want to try and that's how he's been now.
Can you share the story about the meetings?
What meeting?
I mean, I think that's because I was into all that. I wasn't, except for sports, I was into all that stuff too. But the one when he said, who's going to be at the meeting?
Oh, yeah. So I was planning to attend the Moms Demand Action meeting in Bangor, and I was telling the kids that we were going to be attending the meeting and there were going to be kids activities and they had to come and that some of their friends would be there. And Cameron said, oh, I already know it's going to be Gretchen and our friends Willa and Ingrid are going to be there. And I said, how'd you know it was going to be Gretchen? And he goes, because Gretchen always goes to those meetings with you.
Well, I think it kind of speaks to, obviously, this is not something new that we've always been drawn to, like being involved and doing stuff, right?
Exactly.
So, and I love that and Ingrid doesn't just do sports. She also does like student council. She's a library assistant, very into that, takes her job very seriously, has learned to shelve, which is nice because she gets to see all the books and kind of browse while she's working through her shift.
Is this at the school?
At the school, yeah.
Is it after school?
No, it's during study hall.
Oh.
They have a study hall one quarter a week. So, or one quarter.
So she doesn't do homework during it?
It's only 2 days a week she does it. The other 3 she can do homework.
Oh,
so
good for her.
So she gets involved in those activities. There are some things too that she is quite mediocre at, and it's just sort of like, all right, good. I'm glad you're trying new things, and I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. I think that this is fantastic. But I'm trying to think of how I celebrate my kids. Like I think it's pretty clear that I do love them and love them for things other than just the points they score and all that. One of the things that really drives me nuts is when I go to the games. First of all, I don't know the rules, and I know that like you're supposed to put it in the end where the other goalie is. Like I'm like, okay, so you just got to get it down there. So I don't know the rules, but I really hate it when parents coach from the sidelines.
Yeah.
Not like if you're a parent volunteering to coach your kid's team, then you are the coach, and I am not talking about you. Mm-hmm. But when I'm sitting there and these parents are just screaming, I remember this from even before I had kids when I was teaching. I remember going to a soccer game and every parent was like, kick it at a soccer game. I'm like, well, no shit, you're supposed to kick the ball. But maybe if everyone just stopped screaming, kick it, they could hear the coach and figure out how they're supposed to get there. When I go to games, the ball is near her, you'll hear me go, yay, Ingrid. And that is the extent of my cheering. Go team. Yay. And there's always these great signs that say, kids are kids. This is not the major leagues. This is, you see them go around Facebook with the start of every season. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm going to go and I'll go to the games and I'll sit in have you ever seen my Sideline sofa?
No.
We have a double folding chair from Kelty. And so it holds the 3 of us to watch Ingrid's games. And it unfurls, and I keep it in the back of my car during any kind of sports season that involves bringing your own seating.
I need to start doing that because I don't have a seat.
Oh, yeah, you need a seat.
Yeah.
And so I just sit back. It has cup holders, and I sit back and I'll get a coffee or go team. Yay. Was that a goal on? That was our goal. Okay, good. Yay. Is it over? What's happening? I don't know.
Now, do you think you'd be more fired up about band or Girl Scouts?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the other things, first of all, they're not as competitive. And actually this year I learned that middle school is the year that the band actually sounds like music and not just screeching, like organized, just string screeching in one room that you have to try not to flinch at and also applaud for, which is tough. But this year they actually sound like they were making music. So I'm kind of bummed that just by the time they figure out how to make music, we're bailing. But maybe Willa will and want to do it. And I've also tried to honor both of my kids. They're both so different from each other and so different from me and from Dave. She's more, and I did drama club because I did all the clubs.
I did that too.
Yes.
The play.
Yeah.
That involved singing.
I didn't sing.
Horrible. I'm a horrible singer, and I did solos, and I don't know why anyone let me, because you're saying that in middle school it started to sound like music. Mine still sounded like screeching, like a whale or something. It was the worst.
Have you ever seen Steel
horrible.
Magnolias?
No.
Oh, okay. That was the play we did my senior year, and I was Weezer, which...
Oh, I watched Parks and Rec.
Yes?
I don't know if I'm offended or not that you think I'm Leslie Knope.
No, it's not. It's a compliment of the highest order. You need to just keep watching.
I couldn't watch after the first episode.
You got to keep watching.
She just seems like such an airhead.
No.
Which I know I can present that way sometimes.
It starts off, did you watch the first one?
Yes.
So it's the first one, like it takes a few episodes to get traction, but you want to watch it to understand it and get through. So you're going to want to watch it. So I did plays and I did stuff like that. But that is also, you don't go to your kids, like with sports, you're at games once a week. With plays or with orchestra, it's once a year or twice a year. And Willa is very into theater type stuff, but so she's doing like a show choir thing and she likes it. But I said, do you want to do the next session? No, I don't want to do the next session. I don't like that. It's different plays that they're doing, and she doesn't like the next one's Trolls. And she's like, I don't want to do Trolls. She's done Moana and she's done Sing. Okay, we don't have to do it. But she's interested in, they're doing a Junie B. Jones play this summer, but it's weeks that I have her, so I can't, in good faith, sign her up for it. Like Girl Scout camp happens through there and all that. But they're so different. Yeah. So Willa loves makeup. Loves it. And as you know, I've been struggling to find my outer diva and apply it to my face. And that's been a little tough. But she has more makeup than me. I actually borrowed her makeup brush, which I commented on Facebook about because I was like, oh, this doesn't look right with my fingers. I'm like, well, do you have a makeup brush? Oh, sure, Mom. Here, you can have this one. So I had one of her. And it's like a real tool because I will buy her like the real sets at Ulta for not like the $40 ones, but the Ulta brand. They're usually at Christmas will be like $10 and it's 27 glittery pink eyeshadows, and she loves that kind of stuff. But so she's let me use one of her tools and I went and bought my own. But she's so wants to be glamorous and all of this, and Ingrid wears free shirts that she gets from camps and it was like, yeah, whatever, this and leggings. It's just different. It's weird how they're so different.
It is. My kids are so different too. And Cameron wants to do all the things. Maxwell wants to sit at home by himself. I mean, he would never leave the house if we didn't let him. If we let him stay here, he would stay. And in Cameron, he has to be deathly ill to miss school. He'll hide sickness because he doesn't want to miss school. Maxwell, he woke up this morning, he goes, I still have a fever. Yay, I can't go to school. He has a good time when he's there too, but he's just such a homebody. I can't see Maxwell getting involved in very many things because I think it's exhausting. I think he's going to be more introverted, and it's going to be exhausting to him to do much extracurriculars, even though I'm going to try to encourage him to, because I think it is important for you.
I think it's good to find something that you can do that you can feel like you're learning and
a different skill.
And getting better at. Second grade was when Ingrid tried soccer, so the soccer thing was coming up. I was like, oh, Lila, do you want to try soccer? And she was like, no. Like, why would I do soccer? No. I was like, okay. Even though you're very glamorous, I just want to make sure that you know that sports are an option too if you want to try one. She's just like, no.
Now, have you had experiences with peers or parents talking about academic performance?
I have. I'll hear people talk about various things and different stuff, and it's just sort of, I think it sort of peaks and then it drops down as their kids get older, and you realize that they're all pretty much kids. And then sometimes I think some of the smartest kids in the room have the quietest parents, and just don't need to advertise it and don't need to get that sort of recognition.
It's so funny. I was just having this conversation with one of our friends. Her son is quiet and does really well. And she was talking to me about this. And I said, I see it as a college professor. There's this usually, and I don't know what your experience is like, but 99% of the time, the students at the top of the class are usually also not the quietest, but the most humble.
Yes. Yep. Humble. They do the work. They get it done.
They don't nitpick about 2 points on their test. And then
they're also the toughest on themselves too, I find.
They're the ones, if they earn a 95, they will be in your office wanting to understand how to do better the next time. They always are prepared. They have the questions ahead of time for written assignments, etc. Absolutely. I think that they worry, or they're the toughest on themselves or worry the most. And then you've got the other students who maybe should be in and aren't, or the ones who think that they're the top and maybe the loudest when they don't realize how far ahead other people are from them. So that's that's interesting that you find that with the kids' parents as well.
I think so. Sometimes, when someone's crowing really loudly, it's like, are you saying this for me or are you saying it for you? And I think it's good. I think it's really important for your kids to hear you say nice things about them, but also not to make it so that it's like an uncomfortable thing. So just, for instance, with field hockey, I actually made a point to go speak to the gym teacher who was also the field hockey coach at parent-teacher conferences. And Dave was like, why? I'm like, well, I just want to tell her. I feel like it made a big difference in her adjustment to middle school. And I just wanted to thank her because I didn't really talk to her. There's a lot of kids on the team. And she had no idea that Ingrid loved it so much because Ingrid's so quiet herself. She was like, she was such a little athlete and she did so good. And so here I am bragging about my kid, saying, I don't like to brag about my kid, but she did well for never having played before. And the coach still couldn't tell if she was having a good time. She knew she was doing well, but is she enjoying it? Like she kind of sits quietly on the bus and does whatever. And I was like, no, she loved it. And it was kind of nice to have that conversation with the coach to be able to tell her, thank you for making this a good transition to middle school. And I think the coach was reassured to hear that she had a good time and had enjoyed it because you wouldn't have necessarily known that from her interactions. Because I have a picture of her sitting on the bench reading a book during a game. I'm like,
it's a funny picture.
You can't really do that. Like, I was like, what's a really good book? I'm like, I know. Just put it down, walk away, pay attention to the game.
Yeah.
In case you need to go in, which goal you need to put the ball thing in, whatever it is. I think that's another piece, is that even that your kids shouldn't be able to hear you say nice things about them, but it shouldn't be a bullhorn. And I also think that I believe you should never dress down a teacher or a coach in front of your student or your kid. I think that that's important as well. That if you have a problem, that you handle it quietly and away from the kid, because I think it makes kids super uncomfortable to have those. They're all leaders and adult leaders in their lives. And when they see that kind of conflict, it can be really uncomfortable for the kid.
I think that, like what you were saying earlier about kids being hard on themselves, even in the beginning of the year with Cameron, I was really, really anxious, and about his reading.
Yes.
And you kept telling me, I almost getting annoyed with me, Kelley, he's fine. He's going to be fine. It's fine. But I was so worked up about it. I was so worried that he wasn't going to get it.
Well, it's a big transition to go to kindergarten and to start in the school. And then once you get in there and kind of get going, in most cases, it all evens out. And sometimes, and if it doesn't even out, you there's usually a team of people that can help you try to figure out why it's not evening out. And even when I was teaching, the parents that get the most concerned and most worked up about their kids, that means that their kids already have a million advantages than some other kids whose parents never pay attention. But on the flip side, because there's always two sides to every coin, it's also really important to not steamroll your kid. Your kid has to have that agency. It's part of becoming an adult that you have to learn how to ask a question. So if you need extra help in math, I am not going to call the teacher. You're the one who sees them every day. Make the appointment. I'll give you a ride to school early if you need it. But that's where my duty ends. If there's a problem, you handle it. I've had to clarify that with teachers that that's what we're doing in some cases, because I think that there is this expectation that parents are breathing down their kids' necks and their teachers' necks and doing all the, even at the college level.
Oh, well, when I took my first job in academia, during orientation, week 1, the dean said to me, okay, so when you meet with students, make sure you document everything. And they were showing me where to put it. And I said, okay, that kind of made sense. And then they said, because when the parents call, and I was mortified. I said, wait, excuse me? The parents are going to call me? And they said, oh, yes, they will call. And they did. I don't have it as much now, but we did. At that, where I worked before, I had a lot of parent calls.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot they can do in college because of FERPA, and I don't think that parents always realize that they don't, if the waivers aren't signed, they can't talk to you.
I pay the bills, so I should get, it's not a product. Yeah. It's not a service that you're getting. You're paying for your student to get this service. It's important to make sure that kids know how to self-advocate and just in general. So that's one of my other goals too, is I'm not going to be checking your portal every single day. Oh, you're grading up, you're grading down. I honestly never check it. I get report cards just like I did before. And I saw this letter go around on Facebook from some teacher that was like, maybe if parents checked the grades and contacted the teacher. And I was like, well, no, that's not the problem with society today, is that parents aren't doing enough. Parents are doing too much, and they need to let their kids figure out who they are and how to manage themselves. I also do it with doctor's appointments, that I make the girls come up with a question to ask their doctor every time. And they have to ask it. I'm not going to ask it. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, no, because you're growing up. And when you're an adult and go to the doctor on your own, you need to know how to ask a doctor a question. That's a skill you're going to learn.
Well, my parents never knew anything about, I bet they wouldn't even know who my teacher was most of the time. Yeah. And in fact, when it was time for college, I filled out my own FAFSA forms and forged their signatures.
The government's coming for you. Back to jail, Kelley.
Because my mom wouldn't even have known how to do it. She'd never done it before, and it was somewhat complicated. So, and it didn't hurt me one bit.
So I went to FAFSA Club.
Yeah.
And I did it there.
I figured it out, and we're fine. And obviously, I'm not going to be I'm just a more hands-on kind of person with my kids. But we did this week start telling Cameron that he needs to pack his own bag for school and figure out, because each day they have, Monday they have to return their reading books, and then they've got gym, and then there's library. So there's something they need to remember each day. And we did start having him, because he's adjusted and doing much better.
Right.
He's so he can handle that. And I do think that kids need more responsibility. Yeah.
Like I would never, and I think we're pretty much there if they forget. There was one day actually that Ingrid got out of the car, and I think she was mad at me or for something, because she's 11, and went to the school, and I got to work and I looked down and she had left her laptop in my car. And I don't live that far from the school, but I was like, no. She texted me, Mom, I forgot my laptop. Will you bring it to me? I was like, no, I'm sorry. That's the consequences of not paying attention when you get out of the car. And I'm at work now, so no, I can't bring it to you. I'm sure you'll be fine. And because she's actually really conscientious about getting all of her stuff together, making sure she has everything, it sounded like the teachers almost kind of teased her about it all day. Like, oh no, you forgot your laptop. Oh boy, this is big trouble, because she never does. And she's very much a rule follower, which It can be a blessing and a curse if you're a rule follower. I hope that I remember when she was in kindergarten, she got in trouble one time for crawling under the table in kindergarten. She got in trouble for that. And one of my mentors in education, I was like, oh my God, she got in trouble. And she's like, Gretchen, this is what you want her to do. She feels safe enough in there to try and just see what would happen if she got in trouble. She's otherwise not a troublemaker. It was just like this, I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to go under the table. I'm going to stay there. And then she never did again. It was like, okay, we're fine. It's making sure that you give them room to experiment is important.
Well, Cameron is definitely our most challenging, but I will say if he ever got in trouble at school, I would be shocked because he is like rule follower.
Well, this is about the time that Ingrid tried it out, so
I'll keep you posted because so far it's been a green dot every day. And he in the beginning, his teacher had I'd say more power in the house than I did because if he got in trouble, he'd say, "Are you going to tell my teacher?"
Which just goes to show how important teachers are to a kid.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, in fact, this is a cute story. So this weekend, do you understand? I've told you what I did this weekend. I took the kids.
Oh, yes.
Okay. First of all, I volunteered in our church nursery all morning. Then I let Cameron have two friends over from school, and James has been painting one of our apartment buildings for weeks. So he's been completely MIA all weekend and mostly every night. So I let him have two friends from class over. And of course I have Maxwell. So I had 4 kids at my house on a play date. Then I took all 4 kids to the planetarium on campus.
Did they stay awake?
Oh yeah. It was for kids.
No, I know, but even the kids ones, sometimes one of us falls asleep.
Oh no, it's cute. It was Big Bird, Sesame Street. Oh, and they were just a riot because then they ran into another little girl who goes to the school. So they were like a pack. They were all holding hands through the show. Or the planetarium seating was packed. And they have a grad student who runs some Q&A. And all 5 of them were answering all of his questions. No. And then they were talking about the consolations. And they said, oh, you think a lion is a dog? Oh, they were so funny. So then I took them to the pool. And we came home. Okay, so in Cameron's classroom, every day they do share. They have to tell something they did the night before. Okay? So I did all that. Do you want to know what he shared?
What?
That he saw his teacher at the grocery store on Saturday.
That's like the time. What was going on?
Wow.
There was one day I had something going on, or Dave had to take the kids to ski. So he took them out.
Yes, you said.
So I am the one who, Dave does not ski. I am the one who takes them out, manages their lessons, manages their gear. I take them to Sugarloaf. I unbuckle and buckle their boots. I get them into their snowsuits. And I have done this happily for, how many years have I been doing it? 8 years, because Ingrid started when she was 3. So for 8 years, every season, I am the one who, skiing is my thing. I take care of it. And this one day I had to have him do it. So set him up and I was like, look, and then because he doesn't do it, I was like, okay, this other mom is going to be out there. She can help you out. She knows how the boots work. So ask her if you need any help, but just thanks. The next week I was back on ski duty, buckling up Willa's boots. And she says, Daddy does it better. I could have driven home and left them there to live on the ski hill forever. And I was like, no, you don't get to say that. Your daddy does a lot of things that are awesome and wonderful, but this is one thing that I do best. And just because he showed up once to do it does not mean that he did it better. She was just, well, Daddy does it better. One time he did it.
Oh, that is awesome. But yeah, I think for me, I think that I wish in our society we could all have a broader definition of success.
100%.
And just to say, okay, you know, because we need people everywhere. And this is the other thing that I get a little worried about when we start really hyper-focusing on college. It's not that I don't think everyone should go to college if they want to or anything like that, but we almost have created a hierarchy of success in this weird, subtle way that I think is unhealthy. And if you think about it, I mean, we need people in all these types of jobs, and especially the trades.
Oh, yeah.
And we need people who can manage, who have really good interpersonal skills to work in trades. And quite frankly, people who work in trades, they make so much money.
Oh, yeah, they make more than you or I.
Yes. So I'm not exactly sure how.
Or our husband. I mean,
absolutely.
they probably make more than Dave and I combined.
Yes. And so I'm not exactly sure where we got to the society where we started to not promote certain fields and value. And it's not that we don't value them, but you know what I mean? That the definition of success is made here. Oh, yeah. Did you hear? He went to Harvard. Like somehow that, or he wants to be a doctor. Like somehow that is put up on a success level that's perceived as better than, he's an artist or he's a plumber.
Right.
I don't get it.
And we need all these things in our society. And I think
I mean, we need janitors, right? We need secretaries. We need pizza delivery boys.
And those are the people that you want to, I mean, treat everyone with respect. But it really frustrates me when I see people treat, whether it's a waitress or a custodian or the person holding the door at the airport, every single person deserves, I mean, and it's a little thing, and I'm sure lots of our listeners do this, but the guy who cuts my meat at BJ's, it's always a thing that I'm always like really pointed to look him in the eye, take my turkey and say, thank you. I hope you have a great night. And I feel like it's appreciated. Maybe I'm just patting myself on the back, but just because you're cutting meat and I'm not working on a Sunday because I have a Monday through Friday mostly job doesn't make me any better than you.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I always get into interesting, actually at Hannaford, there's one person who works in the deli. She's so good. She always asks what I'm cooking, what recipes do I have on this? She asks me what's in it, what's it taste like, have I ever cooked it before, am I having friends over? She's so good. And I love it when people really embrace their jobs of all types. I don't know, have you ever seen the video? I think it was on the news at one point, but there's a YouTube of it, of the woman who works at the toll booth.
I've probably seen it.
Oh, it's awesome. She's like, hi, how's your day? Great, have a great day. And it's really easy to make a difference on someone's life in just a very simple way.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much, but I think part of the reason why people are not happy at their jobs too is because we're constantly on a quest for something better, or some jobs just aren't perceived by society as successful. So therefore you're just automatically kind of miserable in them.
That it's unfair to call things unskilled labor when there's not a real defined term. Like, so you'll see that there's more jobs, but it's unskilled labor, because every job requires a skill, and whatever that skill is, it's really demeaning to all of these systems that support us through every day. You might think that a truck driver is unskilled labor, but he's
what if we didn't have them anymore?
Yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't think that.
Exactly.
And I get of course very passionate about the nursing area, because we have an equally warped view and value of nurses and where they work. So if you work in a hospital, and even within the hospital, there are gradients of hierarchy, like the ICU nurses or the life flight nurses or the ER nurses, or somehow, you're more of a nurse if you're in those areas, whereas like a school nurse, I even heard a school nurse say it recently. She was telling students, oh, well, don't do this job if you want to do something fancy. This is just easy. This isn't like the real tough stuff. And I thought, oh, it's too bad you think that, because from my perspective, because I see all of the nurses working in every area, the school nurses see kids every day for years. They can make sure, they can advocate for them. They can make sure that they have food and referrals and they can work with families on tough issues like transgender healthcare and all of these complicated things every day and develop a relationship. And I'm not devaluing any type of nurse. I think every nurse is important. But nurses in the hospital, it's just episodic. They may see you for 12 hours and literally never see you again in your life.
Right.
So it bugs me that we even have a hierarchy in nursing of what jobs are perceived to be, smarter people go into, smarter nurses, or
I see that in education
valuable.
Too, with like K-12 education. I tell this to people all the time. So I taught middle school, and I always said, if you teach like K-5, people think, oh, you must love children, you're so caring, isn't that sweet? Yeah. And if you teach high school, you're like, oh, you must be really smart in your subject area.
Yeah.
How brilliant you are to teach a high school. And if you teach middle school, they say, oh, you're crazy. Yeah. For wanting to be in middle school. I get it. You're just completely nuts.
Yeah.
And I loved middle school because it was such a transitory time for kids, because they go in as little kids and they come out as almost adults. It's like a bizarre metamorphosis that happens between 6th and 8th grade. So I love middle school. Having a middle schooler now, like I say, I know the enemy. I know what's coming. And that's the tough part, is being the parent. It's different being a teacher of a middle schooler than it is being the parent of a middle schooler, for sure.
Yeah, I would think that for all of those, I can see how teaching would be exactly the same. For all of those levels, you need someone who's really passionate and embracing that period of time, because every stage has its own set of challenges. Like the kindergarten teachers, I mean, can you imagine these kids come in, some of them don't know their letters, and then you've got ones who are reading. I mean, and then you have kids who are boys who are turning 5 in October. And then you've got boys who are turning 6 in October because maybe their parents registered them. And then you have girls who are 5 and 6, and girls are developmentally just more ahead anyway. And then you're trying to bridge everyone together. And while they're all, transitioning to school.
Do you know why I didn't want to do like K-3? Because I figured if they had to throw up, they didn't know yet to go to the bathroom, and I didn't want to have to deal with vomit. That was my rationale initially for choosing middle school. And I never had a kid throw up on me, so it was good. It worked out.
I think you'd be good at high school too.
Well, college is kind of the same thing, I mean, college is, I teach at the college level with adults, but I'm teaching them how to handle K-12, but it's kind of a nice thing to be involved in education from all levels, I think. Speaking of which, did you see Betsy DeVos's 60 Minutes?
Oh my gosh.
Ramble.
My favorite quotes. I intentionally have not visited low-performing schools.
Yeah, big smile.
We should be supporting children, not buildings. But this is after she posted on Twitter last week a picture of classrooms with the teacher at the front with chalkboards, with desks, and standing in rows. And we have a lot of that in college still. But part of it is funding. I mean, everyone would like to have smart classrooms and innovative classrooms, but that's a building investment. Yeah. So investing in buildings and infrastructure is investing in kids.
Well, it's just painfully clear she doesn't understand public education or value public education at all, or can't fathom a world where a public school would be dealing with trauma and abuse and all of these things. It's just, it was infuriating to watch as an educator, and I know I'm not alone in that.
But I will say, when I watched because I've watched a couple interviews with her, the 60 Minutes, I only saw a couple clips, but I also watched, she was interviewed at some town hall forum, and then she was on the Today Show this morning. One thing I will say is that any woman out there, any man too, but since we know that our listeners are about 98% women, regardless of what her agenda is, because that's irrelevant and her politics are irrelevant, but her preparation and her responses in any interview it's so clear that she does not have the experience to have that job, but she confidently took it. So it says to me, people out there who are not doing something out of fear should totally jump right in, because she took this over confidently. I mean, she's confident, but think of all the very intelligent people out there who aren't confident, who could do amazing things in the world.
She carries herself with the confidence of a mediocre white man.
That's your advice.
Yes, which I read I can't take credit for. I read it someplace else, but I try to remember that because you think about the people who just were like, yeah, I can do it. I'm sure I can wing it, make it happen. So maybe
she appears. I don't think she appears confident though. She's when they ask her pointed questions. I mean, when they asked her about the schools in Michigan,
I think she's
stumbling over her words.
She stumbles over her words and she hides behind, well, if I just smile and stop talking, maybe they'll believe me. It's so bizarre. It drives me nuts. Anyway, so should we wrap this up and hit our favorite things? Any last thoughts?
Well, let me ask you one more question about her. Why do you think she's been so controversial? Because who was in that position? I didn't even know about that position before.
Arnie Duncan was in it before. She's controversial because, one, she doesn't believe in public schools, and the DOE supports public education. Okay. She believes in Christian schools and private schools and school choice at the detriment of public schools. Two, her brother is Eric Prince, who is the founder or owner of Blackwater, which is this private military company that gets and wants more contracts from the Department of Defense to go provide private security forces overseas. And he was one of the guys that met with Russia in the Seychelles and all that from last week. And she's also they're incredibly wealthy as a result of their family owning Amway, which is a multi-level marketing scheme.
She owned Amway?
And she donated a ton of money. That's what she bought her position and hopes to get private schools more. What she would like to do is be able to say, well, the city of Bangor pays $5,000 for our kids to go to the public school. That's what they spend in public school. She would like it to be that you say, well, I'm going to take my $5,000 and I'm going to go to this. I'm going to take it and I'm going to use it myself for homeschooling, or I'm going to take it and I'm going to send that money instead of paying tuition at the Christian school. Here's my $5,000 from the city of Bangor, and they'll have it instead. So when you take the money out of the schools for the kids it serves, and there's no money left for the kids who are not taking that money and going, and it just creates greater inequity and inequality in schools. And
is that how much it is per pupil? 5,000?
I made up that number.
Okay.
That was just an example. I don't know what the per pupil is and what percentage of our taxes or whatever. So basically, that's what she would like to see happen.
Interesting. Well, I've worked at private and public, and I've attended to private and public, and I don't like it when people trash on public school, because in most of my experiences, public school is more challenging and better, more organized and better run.
Well, this actually circles back to the beginning when I said public school is when it's not a self-selected environment.
Right.
And the world is not a self-selected environment. And so I am a huge champion of public schools, obviously, because I want my kids to see all these different people, the diversity that you see in a public school. And I don't mean diversity of race or income, but that's in there. But even the diversity of learners and the diversity of different things. We actually went to a sports competition where there were private schools competing who did really great, had these amazing routines, and talked about it afterwards. And I said, well, those are schools that don't have to take kids that don't have the money to go, and they don't have to take kids who might have special needs, and they don't have to take kids who might have problems at home that lead to problems in school and things like that. And I said, I would much rather have you be part of the crummy team that is made up of people from all walks of life than just people who are exactly like you, who can have private coaches and do all that kind of stuff.
But I mean, even with public schools, oftentimes, at least in our district, their athletic teams are also the best. Oh yeah. So it's not just about the money. Right.
At this event, it felt like there was a very clear divide between public and private.
Cheering competition?
I have no comment. It felt like there was a divide there. But I'm like, but whatever, it's a divide. So I would much rather have my kids be cheering on the scrappy public school team than the perfectly polished non-public school team. That would be my thought.
All right. Favorite things?
Favorite things? So I am going to go with Sephora is going to be my favorite thing this week.
Oh, Gretchen.
Because I still have not quite landed on what I want, but Sephora has been super awesome and trying to get me there, and it's a little intimidating for someone like me because their employees are very heavily made up. Like, they have the drawn on eyebrows.
I told you this is a new thing. I don't understand it.
And so I'll say, I'm like, I'll say, you know what? I say, you're very made up and it looks beautiful and it's very artistic and you're very creative. However, I just want to look a little bit more even and a little less 42. That's all. Fill in some gaps here, fill in some holes and some lines, and just make my skin tone a little bit more even. That's all I want. And I don't want it to cost a fortune, and I don't want to look that made up. And they were awesome. They're like, well, no, I work at a makeup store. I'm like, oh, and I know. And that's great. And I really appreciate how artistic you are. I don't want that. And so they were really awesome. They had a color matching tool, and then they gave me 6 free samples. And then said, if you don't like it, come back in, get 6 more. If you think that this color is a little bit too dark or a little bit too light, just bring back the bag. We'll go up 1, we'll go down 1. And they've been really helpful with that.
I'm so proud of you. And I've heard you've also bought the blending ball.
I bought the blender ball, and that was on the recommendation of a listener and friend and former student and current teacher, which ties it all in together.
Have you tried it?
I used it today.
Oh, and I did notice that her makeup looked I couldn't tell she had makeup on, but I knew she'd been trying it, and her skin looks porcelain right now. And this is it's late at night.
Yes.
This is way end of the day.
I bought the Beautyblender. And
I'm going to try that too.
I also bought the Urban Decay Optical Illusion Primer, which has like a pink tone to it, but that is like a little bit of spackle for the crackles. So you just fills in some gaps. That little gap fill right there. But and I actually bought the small trial size because I had liked the sample. I was like, well, I'll just buy that. And I'm waiting. There's a little fire in our Sephora recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so they had like some sections that had to be cleaned out. I was talking to the woman when I went the first time, and they had to get rid of any open product. So all the samples had to go, all the brushes had to go, like all this stuff. So there's a couple others that I want to try before I really commit to one product and one shade. But they have been very helpful to me, who is, again, I don't know where my children came from, because Willow would color match me in a minute, and she does wonderful makeup, and I struggle. So that's my favorite thing, Sephora. My
favorite thing is for this week is Not So Empty Nest around the corner. Mm-hmm. I really love this store for gifts because there's Maine-made gifts in there from local artists, I guess we call them. I always can go in and find something unique and cute. And also, I don't like big stores. Mm-hmm. They overwhelm me. I actually hate shopping. I hate it. I am the reason why I am contributing to the reason why retail stores are shutting down.
You know that Target Red Card now has free 2-day shipping?
Yeah, I'm really excited about that too.
Okay.
Because I see all these memes on Facebook that say like, you don't go to Target with your list, you let Target tell you what to buy, and all this stuff. And I just think, nope, don't feel that way. I want to go in and get what I need and get out. And in fact, when I have to do a lot of shops, I'm exhausted by it. Mm-hmm. It just drains me. I don't like shopping at all. So anyhow, I like that store because it's just fairly small, and it's quick to find something. You can be in and you can be out, and you can have something that's unique and personable, and they wrap it for you.
And made by an artist.
And yeah, and it's supporting
finding success, and you're supporting local business.
And it's in a neighborhood business too. So
yes, awesome. So the Not So Empty Nest. Yep. You can always leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. You can shoot us an email at balancingchaospodcast@gmail.com if you have any questions. And you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where I already posted an Instagram story. You will have missed it, but if you see this, if you saw it today, and then you'll know when we were recording, but I posted a picture of Kelley's historical horse head, and you'll see that in the stories.
John R. Braden, very famous horse.
I've never heard of him.
No, me either.
But apparently all the horses know him, so that's what's important. So until next week, we will see you later. Bye.
Bye.